Alright, I'm gonna go through a quick demo of how I put together the On Top of Spaghetti video, which is a really simple animation using Blabberize for all the mouth movement and a video editor to add some extras like background music. The process turned out really simple. Blabberize gets you like 95% of the way there. I really didn't even need the video editing stuff, but I thought it would add some nice touches. So I'll go ahead and outline the steps that I took to make it. So there were only a few steps to creating this video. The first was just getting the images to use for the blabbers, like the one that you see here. The second was using Blabberize to create the mouth movement. The third is converting those blabbers to video, and you can also do that using Blabberize. And the fourth and final step was using a video editor to tweak the video and add a little instrumental music. And actually that last step is totally optional. It's you can do the vast majority of this straight through Blabberize, but I wanted to add like the little bit of piano in the background and tweak the timing so that, you know, it worked well as a song. But all of that was really not necessary. I had already drawn these base pictures a while ago when I made a kamishibai for my kids. And kamishibais are a really cool form of dynamic storytelling. And so the kamishibai that I made was the first thing that came to mind when I decided to make an animation. And so you can see here, I just grabbed the picture here with the meatball. And you can see the next picture is the meatball already kind of starting to roll. And the next picture is, you know, him continuing to roll. And so now we see the meatball rolling off the table and making his way to the floor. And so each of these separate images you see is a separate image I use with Blabberize, and I'll use Blabberize after this to go ahead and add the mouth movement to that. So I'm going to come right here to Blabberize and go to Make. Now I start the video with just actually the empty plate of spaghetti. I don't have anybody on scene singing, so this is going to be a little bit of an atypical example of a blabber where we don't actually use a mouth for the first one, but I'll go ahead and go through it, and it's actually a perfectly fine way to create a blabber. So I'm just going to click this button down here to remove it. But I do have music over this part, so I'll go ahead and still add my audio. I have all of the audio clips pre-recorded, so I'm just gonna use that. Okay, and so this is the step where we could actually preview it, but there's no mouth, so it's not a terribly interesting preview. In the next step, we'll actually have a mouth on scene, so it'll be a little bit more of a typical example. So for this next scene, that's where our meatball arrives. We get to see him. We'll use that. Okay. And now we actually get to add our mouth. So I'm going to go ahead and drag the mouth roughly to where I think it should be, and then use drag these points to kind of shape his lower jaw. Now I only really want the lower jaw because that's the part that's going to be moving, and so that will be the part that makes it look like it's actually talking. Okay, that's probably good enough. Now this big point down here is how far the mouth will move. And so usually you don't need it too far from where the actual mouth is. I'm going to bring it just below where the meatball's mouth is. And sometimes we see blabbers where people leave the distance point like way down here, and you see these blabbers with the jaws like flapping really far, and it's cute and funny from a comedic standpoint, but in this case I want a really super realistic meatball singing, and so I'm going to put it much closer to where the mouth is. So now I get to upload my audio. Okay. And now we're at the preview step, so
I lost my poor meatball.
Now we get to see the
when
meatball singing.
Sneezed.
Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay, so now we've got the first two scenes here. And as I said, we'll just continue to keep adding the scenes where the meatball keeps moving, and I'll continue to create the mouths for the meatball and add the audio so that he continues singing, and that will be the entire basis for our animation. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and save everything. Just call this, give it a title, a description. Alright, so now I've got my blabber. I can preview it here.
Spaghetti, all covered in.
Alright, so that's pretty good. Now, the next step is to just download it as a video, and so you can do that straight through Blabberize by clicking on this button. Say yes, convert now, and that will queue it up to get converted to an actual downloadable video. So once it's ready, it'll let me know. All right, and so now that it's completed, I can click here and go ahead and download the video. So this is basically just straight what we get from Blabberize.
Spaghetti, all covered in cheese. I lost my poor meatball when somebody sneezed. Achoo! It rolled off the table and onto the floor.
All right, so that's pretty good. And honestly, this is, as I said, about 95% of what I wanted to accomplish with this, but just, you know, because I kind of wanted to add a little extra background music to it, then I decided to use a video editor to kind of just add that little bit of extra to it. Okay, so here I have my video editor, and this is how I'm going to marry the background music with the exported video I got from Blabberize, which is right here. And then these files here to the left are just background music that I made, piano and horns, just to give me a chance to goof around with the keyboard for a bit. And so this is the piano track. And this one here are the horns. And so, you know, I could have added the background music to the singing and just made that all one audio file and then use that with Blabberize. The reason that I didn't is because that would result in the mouths listening in to not just the singing, but the background music as well. And so there could have been moments where the meatball was not singing and the background music was playing, but the mouth was still moving because, you know, all it cares about is there audio playing or not. And so I decided to separate them, do the singing with and create that blabber just with the vocals, and then go ahead and add in the background music afterwards. And so this is the result of that. So basically all I do here is drag my the video export I got from Blabberize onto my timeline, add in the background music on top of it, and that will layer them together. Now, just dropping them in like that, the timing isn't going to be all that great, as we'll be able to see. On top of spaghetti. So, you know, the music doesn't really line up that well. And so I'm going to need to play around with the timing of both the piano and the horns and kind of make sure that they line up. I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead and show you how it turns out. Okay, so I've spent some time fiddling around with the video editor to play with the timing of the background music, play with the timing of the Blabberize video just to make sure that the singing aligns well with the background piano and horns. So I'll go ahead and play it just so that you can see how it came out. On top of spaghetti, all covered in cheese,
when somebody sneezed. Achoo! It rolled off the table and onto the floor. And then my poor meatball rolled right out the door. It rolled in the garden and under a bush. And then my poor meatball was nothing but mush. That mush was as tasty could be. And then the next summer, it grew into a tree. That tree was all covered in moss. And on it grew meatballs in tomato sauce. So if you eat spaghetti all covered in cheese, hold on to your meatball whenever you sneeze.
Thanks so much for watching. I had a lot of fun putting together this animation and this how-to, and hopefully give you some ideas for stuff you can create as well. Bye!